Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, October 2nd at 7 p.m. And we are in regular session tonight. We'll be reading a series of ordinances and resolutions. Our first item of business is to establish a quorum. We have 6 of our 7 council members present tonight with us. The second item of business is disposition of minutes. And these are for the regular session held September 18th, 2017. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and these minutes have been approved. We now have communications. I have one item that we've received an announcement that Athens Transit is having a free day on Friday, October 6th. All day. So you can ride to places and get to the bike path, Sells Park, places beyond, even to the plains. So encouraging people to take advantage of that. Are there communications from other council members? Okay, communications from, reports and communications from other elected officials. Director Larson? Okay. Mayor Patterson.
I have a few. In conjunction with the Free Ride Day with Athens Public Transit, this Friday is also Athens Area Stand Down at the fairgrounds, the county fairgrounds, and it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Anticipated services for those who are veterans or for the homeless are benefits information, legal services, health screening, food boxes, housing information, job search information, supplies, haircuts, and camaraderie. So that is this Friday. Like I said, it's kind of being dovetailed with the free Athens Public Transit Day. Also,
Where is it again?
at the fairgrounds. It's down at the fairgrounds from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I will also be down there reading a proclamation at the beginning of that. Homecoming is going to be upon us this weekend, Saturday. I've provided council with the map, which is the same map as last year with one minor modification to it. The staging area has typically been down on Factory Street and Riverside, which is down by Ohio University's Parking Services. This year it's going to be over at Woosok, right across the street. Kind of on the, well, not kind of, on the north side of West Union, right across from Factory Street is where the staging is going to be. The route is the same. The route is going to be going up West Union and then jogging down onto South Congress / Richland Avenue over to President Street and then up Court Street to Washington Street and then traversing East Washington to College, and then College, it'll be heading south, and then turning once again onto East Union, and then disbanding as it did last year at the corner of Terrace and East Union. So you've got that. Coming up next week, October 8th through the 14th is Fire Prevention Week, and so more to come on that. There'll be a lot of fire training updates, PSAs on fire and fire prevention. And then finally, I had showed these to council last week. I don't know if this can come up yet. You can get a good screenshot of that. These are, we're calling them pucks, but these are the walk your wheels, carrier boards, essentially, walk your wheels emblems. These are wafer thin for, hopefully the camera can pick up on that. So they're essentially ADA accessible pucks that'll be up and down Court Street. And also you'll see them on some areas on Carpenter, State Street, Washington, and West Union. But as just to remind everybody, up and down Court Street, it is not legal to be riding your bicycle or riding your skateboard up and down that stretch of the uptown area, and therefore we will be deploying these within the next week or so. We're also going to be putting vinyl wraps on the big belly trash receptacles closer to the curb that also have the same information to include the actual ordinance and the fines And once we have all this deployed, council has authorized our parking enforcement to administer administrative fines for those who are found guilty of riding their bicycles or riding their skateboards or any wheeled device on a heavily pedestrian thoroughfare in the city. I would contend that it's one of the most heavily occupied sidewalks areas within the city of Athens. That's all I have.
Thank you. We'll move on to ordinances for third reading. The first one being 10617. It's the only ordinance for third reading tonight. It's an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for sign replacement on U.S. routes 33, 50, and State Route 62 and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Nisley. I move to adopt 010617.
Second.
And as we've discussed in our committee meetings, the state is taking on 100% of the cost of some redesigned signs that they believe are more visible and light efficient in terms of, especially at night, for drivers to see. And they want to replace those signs within our city limits and need our permission to do so. So that is what this ordinance is about.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 10617. Are there any additional comments or questions from council members? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We have an ordinances now for second reading. 10717 is an ordinance authorizing design engineering of the Ridgeland pedestrian improvements. This is project 311 and introduced by Councilmember Pappy. And I do believe we have a citizen who wants to come up to the podium. Two citizens, okay, to come up and make a comments.
Thank you.
So if you can come on up right now and sign in and identify yourself for the...
So this ordinance is authorizing the design and engineering of the pedestrian way that is being discussed for the Richland Avenue area between West Green and the Porter Hall Baker Center area of campus. And we are looking at a sum of $260,000 from our street rehab fund. We have received $1.8 million. Is that correct, Mayor? From ODOT, the Ohio Department of Transportation, for this project. Thank you.
Okay. And Mary, as soon as Mr. Spotforth is signed in. Okay. And if you could announce your name and whether or not you represent a group. And then you've got 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. My name is Mary Costello, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, although I do have friends who share my view, and one of whom is here, and I don't know if you want to speak, you will come up here too. Anyway, I've been concerned about this proposal for a tunnel. I'm concerned about that crossing. As a driver, I find it extremely frustrating. And I have wondered all along why there isn't a pedestrian light there. Because if there were a pedestrian light there, the students would bunch, they'd wait for their turn, they'd cross the street, and then the cars would have a turn. When I sit there, when the classes change, I don't know when I'm going to get a turn to move. I have seen traffic backed up to Peden Stadium. And it occurs to me, this is a main artery into the city from the highway. That this isn't a great way to manage this problem. So I would love to see a pedestrian light there. I have talked to some people on city council. It sounds like there may be problems with that, but I'd like to know what they are, and I would really like to see that solution discussed. It would be a lot cheaper, And even if the tunnel goes through, we're looking at a couple more years of this congestion to have a pedestrian light at least during the interim time. So anyway, that's pretty much my concern. I wondered, too, if there had been research done to see if people would actually use the tunnel. And I have one more concern, which is that a lot of money was spent creating a wonderful sidewalk there, taxpayer money, and I suspect that that will be disrupted and have to be rebuilt with the tunnel. And that concerns me, that we would have built that sidewalk and now we're going to chop it up and build a tunnel. So I have a number of concerns and a number of questions that I would like to hear answers for.
Thank you.
I'm going to wear my hat because the lights bother my eyes. I'm John Spofford. I live at 7 Brown Avenue here in Athens, and I was just listening. If the sidewalk is replaced, why don't you make it into a mural and start the idea of having city sidewalks here and there, even up Court Street on both sides, have the property owner and the city get together, cement, and then implant already designed ceramics and that kind of a thing to make images that the owner of the property would like. You would be the city. So you might apply for Ohio Arts Council's money for a community organization, which would be city council in the city, to see what kind of money would be available to start a sidewalk, Athens, a sidewalk mural project, eventually citywide. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lee Gregg, and I'm speaking as a private citizen, and I'm concerned about this tunnel that's been proposed and money has been obtained for it, because I feel that, well, I don't know, that perhaps there's a lot of research. I understand that this has been done on other campuses, areas, and other cities with campuses, but I didn't see anything in the paper. There was no discussion or that I was aware of. And I really feel very concerned about this amount of money. And it doesn't matter whether it's a grant from the state. It's our taxpayer money. And there will be money coming from the city as well. And will this actually be used? You know, if this is going to be a safety concern, it's going to solve problems, then it's well worth it. But if there's been no research done, and I see as I drive down Richland Avenue, and I worked in Porter Hall for decades, see students crossing at the most convenient point for them. And now we have, going to Baker Center, we have another point where people will want to cross. And I would love to know if there's any evidence that this tunnel, that students will actually walk down, use the tunnel, and then walk back to the point that they wanted to get to on the other side of Richland Avenue. So that's my concern.
Thank you. And thank you for the comments. This is a second reading, so 2 weeks from now we'll have a third reading, and perhaps there's time for administration to be able to address some of the questions that have been raised tonight. So thanks for the comments. We appreciate them. We'll now read Ordinance 10917. This is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2017 year-end appropriations and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 11017 is an ordinance amending the 2017 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 11217 is an ordinance declaring certain items no longer needed for a municipal purpose and is introduced by Councilmember Smedley.
And I'd like to make a motion to amend, please.
You have a motion to amend. Do you have a second? Okay.
And the reasoning for the amendment is because Engineering and Public Works had another request to add another vehicle to this list, It's a 1967 dump truck. It was not added at the time because they couldn't. The title was not located. It has since been located, and so they'd like this added onto this ordinance. And for additional information, this vehicle has 358,933 miles, so it's definitely been used to its full extent. And so that's the reasoning for the amendment.
Okay. So we have a motion and second to amend this ordinance. Is there any other discussion or questions from council members or administration? All right, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion has been amended and read for the first time. We now have ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 11417 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $423,411 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued for the purpose of paying part of the costs of acquiring a new pumper truck and related equipment and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This is one of those ordinances that comes before council once or twice a year when we have to make a purchase or begin a project that requires us to go out to various lending institutions and get a loan to pay for it. So this is the first step in doing that. You're on our disk drive here. You can see the entire document is 4 pages long. I can read part has where whereas the fiscal officer of this municipality has heretofore estimated the life of the improvement constituting the project is at least 5 years and certified that the maximum maturity of the bonds issued therefore is 10 years and the notes to be issued in anticipation of a 15-year. And then it goes on to about to mature and will be renewed in the principal amount of $423,411. This, of course, is for a new fire pumper truck. It's one of those things that the city does need. Equipment does get old and needs to be replaced. It is a matter of public safety, and that's why we're going out to borrow the necessary money. And the first step is to issue these notes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 11517 is an ordinance amending the 2017 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to read this ordinance for the first time. Section 1, the 2017 appropriation ordinance 15016 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums. $52,000 to General Fund Municipal Court 101.106 TC 100 for personnel services. $8,000 to General Fund Municipal Court 101.106 TC 300 for bank fees. $21,000 to Transportation Fund 214 TC 200 for gas and oil. $4,000 to Transportation Fund 214 TC 300 for bus passes and fare box revenue, and $20,000 to Street Fund 220 TC 300 for the tree removal in the city right-of-way and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Read for the first time.
I'd like to point out that the tree removal is, there's been a lot of die-off because of the green ash borer. And if you look around, there's a lot of very dead trees.
Yeah. Thank you for the comment. Ordinance 11617 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to join a coalition of municipalities retaining special counsel for purposes of initiating litigation to challenge the constitutionality of amendments to Chapter 718 of the Ohio Revised Code relating to municipal income tax and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by all members of council.
I'll speak to it.
Okay.
In the past, we've also taken the state to court about the usurpation of home rule. And this is an example, a very good example of the state trying to claw back our home rule, and at the same time, it seems every time they do that with, usurping our home rule, it's also usurping money that comes to the city. So we are going to be partnering with a lot of cities. Number?
They're hoping 50 to 100.
Right.
So this is small cell lawsuit had over 50.
Right. And so we've done this before with the small cell to protect our rights as a city and protect our taxpayers about what they pay for in our city. Thank you.
And a little bit further information, what this is about is the state proposing for centralization of collection of income tax.
Which we've been talking about for 2 years.
Business income tax. And the fee that would be charged to the different cities is based on population. So I think our financial obligation may be up to $4,000 for taking part in this suit. Yes, Mayor?
Just to add to this, in talking with our tax administrator, Tina Timberman, Tina said, at the end of the day, the business tax that if we didn't fight this, that the income tax for businesses, the business tax going forward would be $15,000, which to council and to the audience here may not sound like a whole lot of money, but what that is 1 foot in the door for that to go further each time with wearing and eroding away home rule. We've got a great tax administrator who's so on top of things to the point where the Ohio Municipal League engages with her often, as do other municipalities. So I really encourage council to move forward on this as we do. It would be $4,000 as a sliding scale for municipalities that are larger than us. There's also, which didn't exist in the small cell lawsuit, a scale that goes all the way down to municipalities at 5,000 or less. So it's opening the door for smaller villages to be part of this lawsuit. We were successful under small cell, where what was decided upon was single subject, where other things were being pushed into what was to be a single subject issue. So therefore, and as the law director has indicated, we're looking to have somewhere in the order of 50 to 100, and probably looking more on the high end of other municipalities that are also very concerned about their own home rule.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to Ordinance 11717. This is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title V, Public Utilities, Chapter 5.04, Sewer Regulations, Section 5.04.05, Wastewater Discharges. And this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this last week. There was several questions by council. Administration put forward definitions. Basically, this is about taking septage into the wastewater treatment plant by basically truck. And members of council were concerned about what the definition of septage was. Administration has defined septage and included the word domestic. So that means that there would not be any industrial, scary septage going into our wastewater treatment plant. And personally, I'm satisfied with the changes that were done with the definition changes and some of the other language changes for this ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor?
There was another comment that came up in council, if you recall. I know Member Kotsis was raised the question as to whether at higher flow rates does the wastewater treatment plant run more efficiently. I did speak to the manager of the wastewater treatment plant, and in my conversation with her, what she informed me is with the city of Athens, we have such a strange ebb and flow of volume that comes into that plant for obvious reasons. When school's in session, flows go way up. When school lets out in the beginning of May, those flows go way down. So it's constantly a balancing act to get the system to operate efficiently at any rate. The other thing that I gleaned from the conversation that I had with her was that at higher rates, a lot of times, depending on how high that is, it also becomes a tough balancing act with everything that's going on, and most importantly, it's sludge, on the sludge end of things, and having to balance that. How long do you keep things in the digester? How long can you keep them there? And before you have to start pulling it off and disposing of that. So again, in my conversation is there really is no optimal level at a high flow rate other than having to constantly adjust and dial in the system, but it would be no different than at a lower flow rate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance 11817 is introduced by Councilmember Fall. It's an ordinance amending Ordinance 9914, establishing fees as required by the Athens City Code.
Thank you. This is a ordinance with Title V, citation for garbage and rubbish violations, and it's dealing with the penalties that are right. So we talked about, we talked about the being able to dump sewage, and now this updates the wastewater discharge cost. So when people come forward, they will, well, companies, they'll have to pay a certain amount of money, which is 0.05 per gallon. So I don't know how big those septic sewage sucking plants are, how many thousands of gallons, maybe not. So this is charging for them to be able to use our wastewater treatment.
Yes, here.
If I may, I don't know either
Sorry.
how many gallons they're talking about, but I will tell you, it is 5 cents a gallon for receiving septage, which our wastewater treatment plant, as council knows, is designed to do that. That was part of the agreement when we had the major overhaul of the wastewater treatment plant. To translate that for council as well as those who are here tonight, that 5 cents per gallon is about 7 to 8 times more than what it is for standard residential sewage that is going through our sewer system and finding its way to the wastewater treatment plant. I also want to mention, because this was, again, in the previous ordinance, but it's timely now, is that in conversations with our city engineer, you know, for the haulers themselves, the haulers who are bringing septage, they are held to pretty high standards. As a matter of fact, they are held to very high standards for what they are hauling. They are responsible, it's their livelihood. So kind of going back to the good versus the bad versus the ugly of what could come in, that they are pretty conscious. Again, this is, as the city engineer has informed me, this being their livelihood, they're tracking pretty much what they're receiving too, in terms of what they're sucking up and bringing to the septage receiving station. But going back to that 5 cents, I think it's important for the public to know that there is a difference between what gets hauled in and received at the septage receiving area versus what comes through the city sewer lines into the wastewater treatment plant.
Right. I think that it's important to mention, because of the definition change that's in the previous ordinance, that there won't be industrial waste and definitely not fracking waste. So people should rest assured. And with the wastewater treatment upgrade that we did, we do have the capacity to be able to do absorb this sort of hauling. And at one point, if we don't have the capacity, we can stop it because it's contractual. So, thank you.
Councilmember Reisner.
How are the fees collected? Do they pay up front, or do they send them a bill? Or, I mean, how does the city collect that?
Member Reisner, I don't know the answer to that right now. I can certainly find out. I would imagine it's an account system that's set up as each truck rolls in. I don't know whether they pre-register there aren't really all that many haulers when it comes to the septage we're talking about here, which is in the ordinance of the ordinance.
Because they're established companies that go
They
and
are.
do.
But I'll find out for you.
basically- Yeah.
I can get you that information.
Well, let me ask a hypothetical question. Suppose someone has something like a large Winnebago camper. It's full of septage, okay, maybe 100 gallons. They come up, say, knock, knock, can I dump it here? 5 cents
Oh.
a gallon, that's quite a,
Whether that's even logistically able, that's a good question.
just wondered.
I assume that there is a hose that's attached to the tanker, which is, you know, a lot of those Winnebagos and stuff.
That's right.
But it may be an industrial hose, the size.
No, but I guess my point is not so much do they have the ability to do it, but would we have the methodology in place for such an event if someone just drove up and said, I'd like to dispose of this? Could it be done? And could someone at the plant say, oh, sure, there's no problem. We have a procedure for that. It's all written down right here. This is how we do it. And that'll be so much. Thank you very much. Yeah. It'd be a good idea to have that in place.
I will find out for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I have one other
Yes,
question.
Councilmember
This is
Papp.
rather a long ordinance with many other fees and permitting fees and whatever, and I just wanted to make sure that none of those had been changed. We're just strictly talking about septage.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 11917. This is an ordinance closing a portion of Court Street on Monday, October 30th, 2017, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. for trick or treat, hosted by the Athens Uptown Business Association, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Isley. I move to suspend 11917. I believe that we need to get rolling on this because trick or treat is listed as Monday, October 30th for this AUBA event. So we need to move forward on this.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for suspending the rules for 11917. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to adopt 11917. And again, this is for our annual 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. trick-or-treat event hosted by the Athens Uptown Business Association, better known as AUBA. And I think over the last couple of years, we've worked out some difficulties and things that were going on. And again, this is actually after the Monday after the large Halloween event on Saturday night. And there will be bagging done starting on the meters at the parking will be banned starting at 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to one reading resolution, and we have one tonight.
Do we need to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. I have the motion in second, check marked, and then didn't do the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. This is for approval of adopting 11917.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion's carried, and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Now we'll move on to Resolution 917. This is a resolution of the Athens City Council declaring that the facilities decisions of the Athens City School District will have a significant impact on the city and is introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Isley. I would like to read the resolution first because the public has not, they've only seen the first few lines here. As you stated, this is a resolution of the Athens City School District Council. I'm sorry, let me start over. Resolution of the Athens City Council declaring that the facilities decision of the Athens City School District, or ACSD, will have a significant impact on the city. Whereas changing the existing Athens City School District facilities will represent a historic shift in K-12 education in the city. And whereas Athens City involvement in the ACSD planning process represents the best interests of the educational, economic, and social needs of this city. And whereas the Athens City Comprehensive Plan update may include discussion of school facilities in residential zones versus educational zones. And whereas the members of Athens City Council, representing all constituents of the city, remain steadfast in seeking to understand the beliefs and views of their constituents during the planning phase of the ACSD restructuring. And whereas the Athens City Council will endeavor to be fully informed in the ACSD plans as they are devised. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, the City of Athens is a vibrant, diverse, and intellectually active community that values the educational experience of its citizens and the planning process therein. Athens City Council, through legislative decisions, guides city planning, economic, and infrastructure improvements, and hereby urges the Athens City School District to utilize data and information available from the city's commissions and committees as ACSD facilities plans move forward. Section 2, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to transmit a copy of this resolution to the Superintendent of the Athens City Schools. Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law upon its passage and approval by the mayor. I would just like to make a comment about this. We have received some correspondence, one from a school board member and several other emails from constituents in the community. As Third Ward representative, 3 of the schools within our district, 2 of the schools, West Elementary and East Elementary, many of those residents who live in the Third Ward attend those 2 schools, elementary schools. The middle school sits right on the edge of the Third Ward in the Second Ward. As a voting member on this Board of City Council, not only do I need to hear from the constituents in the Third Ward, but I also hear from members of this entire voting community. And that's how I view my role here as a city council representative. And so there's no ulterior motive that I have in terms of bringing this resolution forward, other than to express my feelings and others' feelings on council regarding the planning process. And that I believe in the city that there will be impacts. I don't totally know what those impacts will be. None of us really do. But I felt that it was important to put this concern in writing and have a vote on this council. So that's why this resolution was put together.
And we'll open it up for discussion amongst council members at this point.
This could be a motion.
And do you want a motion in a second?
I would like to move to adopt Resolution R0917.
Do we have a motion and second? We'll now open it up for discussion. What we'll do is begin with council members first, city administration. We will move to audience members who could come to the podium after that, and then each have 3 minutes to present if they have some comments to make. Council members, we'll start with you.
Sure.
Councilmember Smedley.
Thank you, Member. I do have a few comments. I did receive a number of communications from constituents, as have all council members, and I'm sure we'll hear from some tonight. I'm unclear what problem we're trying to solve with this resolution. Part of the resolution does urge the city school district to seek out information and data from council, but we do have our mayor who served on the facilities commission, or the facilities committee, and so I feel like that was an important piece to bridging the communication between those 2 entities. I would also add that we have to recognize and respect that the city school district has its own elected board that is charged with overseeing the administration of the school district. Their goal is to create a fair and equitable and sustainable educational system for our students. That is their priority. Collaboration can happen, and it should happen, and it is happening. Like I mentioned, we had our mayor on their facilities committee. They have had numerous meetings and they have been very flexible and available when members have had questions and open to feedback when it's made available. And I think once their decision is made, collaboration with both entities will be made easier once we have a clear plan ahead of us. But we have to respect their need to work through their process and their decision making. And so what I would prefer to see is something that it has more of a spirit of collaboration than what's presented before us tonight. Thank you.
Any other council members who want to make comments at this point? Yep, Councilmember Katsas.
All right, thank you. And I would also like to kind of echo similar points. The thing that gets me on this piece is that being on city council, I am in charge of making decisions for a 10 square mile radius, which is the city of Athens. The Athens City School District is a little bit over 88 square miles, and so when we come to the table with something like this, we do need to come forward and say this is not just us. There's a larger region that we're working for, and we're weighing in on it. And I believe that there is a time that the City Council will be ready to make those declarations and decisions on how this affects the city, but we're not there yet. The school board is still working on this, and they're still moving forward, trying to work through the process and make sure that they have everything figured out before they determine what plan it is. And the plan keeps changing, depending on whether they find that their parcels are not large enough to handle the schools that they want to, and also just kind of gauging what the community is providing feedback at the school board meetings. I could talk a long time about this, but I think you kind of understand that I'm apprehensive about moving forward with something like this, which doesn't necessarily, to me, feel like what the spirit of Athens is, which is inclusive and welcoming.
Other council members. Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. As the Planning and Development Committee Chair, I think that we are at a point where there's many rumors about what is going on. There's plans that are put out there, and then they're checked and said, well, that may work and that may not. As a city planner has identified, we are a inclusive, very plan-oriented community. We are starting on our comprehensive plan. We do sustainability plans, we do recreation plans, we do bike and pedestrian plans. And what I think that we're trying to put forward as City Council is that, true, the school district is large, but there's a lot of people and facilities in the city that have to do with school. And you cannot argue the fact that many of the monies from the citizens go forward from the city. What I've gotten from many, many people throughout the city who may or may not have children, they don't feel like they're being listened to. The planning process has not been inclusive, and I think that people would like to just say there are other information, such as our sustainability and our comprehensive plan, that need to be looked at during this process. I think that the idea that you can go and at the steering committee and stand up for 3 minutes, that's not planning. That's not an inclusive process for people who may not have kids, so they didn't hear from the PTO. And because this is a really large impact on the structure and the society of our city and the county, I think that what we're trying to say is, let's work together. Let's do things by consensus and identify things, opportunities and identify costs. At one point, there was a rumor that, well, we're going to develop something and there's going to be a road that goes up to it, and who's going to pay for the road? We as a city need to be included in those discussions, because that has a huge impact on the infrastructure that we've built or the infrastructure that we're planning to build. A street or a bike path or any of those sort of things, that impacts our ability to pay for it and our ability to manage it and take care of it. And I think that a lot of citizens don't feel like they're being listened to when it comes to those sort of impacts. And the school district has to come forward and work with us to identify those sort of things. And it's not really a good process to have people talking about, whether it's the school district or the rumors about like a street that's going to cost $1 million and who's going to pay for it. Oh, the city will pay for it. Well, that's not good planning. It's not professional. It's not inclusive. And in the end run, because there's all these rumors going around that says that they need to be more inclusive and use the city. We have some really good avenues of getting out and going beyond just the school district and the steering committee to include people who will, in the end up paying for things because they're taxpayers. And so I'd like to see it more inclusive. Thank you.
Other council members? Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Like other members of council, I've received a lot of texts and emails from various constituents and stakeholders in this on this issue. Normally, City Council would not be involved in this, certainly not at this stage. City Council does not have any legislative powers dealing with our school system. Naturally, when things begin to culminate, we know, and a plan's developed, and of course the city will get more involved with it, but at this stage, we normally wouldn't. My concern about this is two things. One is, what is my role as a city councilman in this? I represent the 2nd Ward, south side of Athens, and my job is to see that the best possible things can happen to my ward and the people that live there. After that, it's the city of Athens. That's my concern. That's my oath of office, is to the city. It's not to Athens County. It's not to any other entity. So I have to concentrate on what do I think is in the best interest of the city. It may or may not conflict or benefit others, but that's where I have to look at. That has to be my point of reference. What I'm concerned about here is that there's another entity involved here. It's a quasi-governmental agency, the Athens City School District. They're elected by the citizens of the district, which includes the city of Athens, but other municipalities, country, in the county. And I just don't think it's a good policy for one governmental agency to be colliding with another, at least not at this stage. I don't know what the plans are yet from the school district. They haven't been formalized yet. I can't really object to something that I don't know what it is or even if it exists. So that's where I'm coming from on this. Looking at what I think is best for the city, I think at the moment, the best thing to do is let the school board proceed with its normal operations, and then when we know what they are, then we can jump into it with both feet. That's where I'm standing at right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I'll communicate briefly. I appreciate all the comments made by my fellow council members and think there's a lot of wisdom up here, as is in the audience. I don't have all the answers. I, too, have commented from this platform before that I received concerns from West Side neighbors about their future concerns regarding what might happen to their neighborhood school. And since I represent the First Ward and West Side, I'm listening to them because I believe that they're being sincere when they acknowledge their fears and worries that they might lose their beloved West Elementary School. But similar to what's been commented, we don't know what's going to happen with the school district. As such, commented from Rusty Rittenhouse's email to us, in which he acknowledges that the school board has not finished its master facilities plan yet. So I respect that. I acknowledge that there are rumors out there, and they concern me sometimes. But again, they're just rumors. I do believe that Councilmember Pappy is not being adversarial. My interpretation of this resolution, which is non-legally binding, it's just a resolution, is not adversarial, but rather in the spirit of communication. That's how I interpret it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mayor Patterson, any comments?
Other than, I believe, last week and in times past, I've been abundantly clear as to, what my sense is and what my feeling is as the chief executive to the city, and the only person in any role close to that on the steering committee. I was very clear during the steering committee process that that I couldn't imagine the city of Athens being with zero public education in the city. So, and I will continue along that same vein. I should also remind council and the public that, as Member Reisner indicated, that the school board is a quasi-governmental entity, and when it comes time for levies in the future, the electorate is who votes to, vote up or vote down anything in the future. And I think that that's something that our city, as well as those, I can't speak for those outside the city limit proper, but I think that that's appropriate to remind everyone that the electorate will decide at the end of the day as to what happens ultimately wherever this goes. But again, as I've mentioned in the past, I really could not imagine the city of Athens not having any schools in here, which again, I saw my role on the steering committee was to make sure that was loud and clear for those who were on the steering committee, in that the city have a public education system.
Okay, thank you. And do we have members from the audience who would like to speak? And if you just let us know your name and sign in, and whether or not you're representing a group. And each person will have up to 3 minutes, and I'll set the timer when you begin.
Madam President, as a matter of order, I had planned to submit this letter to Councilman Smedley, and then found out this morning that indeed there would be public participation. So in deference to and respect for the 26 people who signed this letter, rather than Arian reading it, I'm going to now. So if you'd be so kind as to start your timer, I think I can get it under 3 minutes.
Okay.
Dear Councilmember Smedley and other members of council, every learner, every day. That is the motto of the Athens City School District. 13 months ago, our school district's Board of Education appointed a 16-member steering committee to help develop a long-term facilities plan. This committee was comprised of current and former educators, parents of current and past students, community members, representatives of Ohio University, and as it pertains to City Council, our mayor. Over the course of the past 13 months, the steering committee met in public 11 times in room 105 of building 21 on the Ridges. The committee hosted 2 community input meetings at Athens High School. Additionally, Superintendent Gibbs met in a question and answer session with community members at each of the 4 elementary schools in our district. And finally, representatives from 2 different architectural firms presented plans at 7 public board meetings this calendar year. I'm sure we have some math students from Ohio University here, for those of you keeping track. That's 24 times citizens of Athens had an opportunity to be fully informed and involved in the planning process. As the Board of Education nears a decision on what, if any, measures to place on the ballot in 2018, the suggestion that Council suddenly weigh in with a resolution concerning the possible impact of a decision that is yet to be made is disingenuous at best. In this current climate of instant information and fact transmitted by social media, the reasons and motivation for the need to pass this resolution range from conspiracy theories to a desire to maintain the status quo. The status quo, where 2 of our elementary buildings passed 0 of the 12 state performance indicators, while the other 2 buildings passed 8 and 9 of those indicators this past school year, is unacceptable, and one of the many reasons why the Facilities Steering Committee spent so much time discussing plans to ensure equitable educational opportunity for every learner every day. Ensuring the continued welfare of the citizens of Athens is certainly one of the many responsibilities of Council. However, adopting a resolution where Council clearly has the cart before the horse only serves to polarize the community and risk the future educational opportunities for our district students, both inside and outside of the city limits. We urge you to set this resolution aside and permit the governmental body charged with overseeing the education of our community's youth to complete the tasks they were elected to address. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Julia Stout, and I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm a property owner on the Near East Side. My children attended East Elementary. I also attended East Elementary. I bought a house there because it was near East Elementary. And when this issue first came up, my gut reaction was, well, we have to save East. But it's a very nuanced issue. I attended some meetings. I've listened to all the facts. And as the mother of a child with a disability, I have to say that this current system we have is not equitable and fair to kids with disabilities. The resources are spread out over multiple schools instead of being concentrated in one school. My daughter was not able to get or have access to many resources that would have really helped her move forward. I had to switch her to Beacon School to try to access things like a sensory room. And I also want to say that my son, both my son and my daughter, the kindergarten class at East Elementary had 24 kids in it, in one tiny room. And I had to actually pay someone, I had to pay my son's kindergarten teacher to tutor him outside of class because she didn't have the time during the school day because her class was so crowded. A friend of mine who teaches in another district says she never has more than 16 in a kindergarten class because kindergarten has a lot of ground to cover these days. You have to come out of kindergarten being able to read. So I think what matters most and what's fair and equitable to everybody is not necessarily a small school, but small classrooms, functional schools, and that may or may not, that could look a variety of different ways. And I would like to encourage people to keep an open mind And judging from the number of street signs or yard signs in my neighborhood, a lot of people in my neighborhood are passionately wanting to preserve East Elementary. But I want to say that there's more than one way to look at that issue, and that what really matters is equality and a good education. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barbara Stout. That was my sister. And I also attended East Elementary School. I own property on the east side. I don't have any children or grandchildren. I have nieces and nephews. So some people have said, like, I don't have a stake. I don't have a horse in this race. But as a citizen of this community, every citizen in this community has a horse in this race, because we all live in and will grow old in the society and the community that is created by the children that we educate. I have to say, during this meeting, I felt like I'm in the middle of an Adele song, Rumor Has It. I mean, rumor, I saw the signs. And I thought, I love East. Oh, I went to East. We can't get rid of East. And then I took the time to educate myself. I went to board meetings. I talked to people. I went on the internet. And I have to say, I've come away with nothing but respect for the Board of Education. It is such a complex issue. You start reading the state rules and the regulations for facilities planning, and I am just in awe of the school board members that they have waded through this with all the very complex issues about funding and other things. I understand that this will affect the city of Athens, but it affects the Plains, it affects Chauncey, it affects the entire school district. And to put forth a resolution before the school board has finished doing what they're charged with doing and what they have put a lot of time, thought, energy, deep thought into, I think is actually very disrespectful to the school board and to the steering committee, who have spent time. I mean, my mind was blown when I read some of these regulations. The complexity of it all is deep. And a resolution it's deeply disrespectful to our elected school board. That's all I have to say.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Council President Nicely, and all the council members for all your services and giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Noriko Kantake, and I'm speaking on my own behalf. I have a serious concern and comment about this one-read resolution regarding Athens City Schools District. First of all, City of Athens provides less than half of the district's students' body. Having a resolution to interfere with the school board process is akin to interfere with the life of everyone, not just City of Athens, in the district. Secondly, I do agree a portion of a resolution that says, whereas changing the existing Athens City Schools District facilities would represent a historic shift in K-12 education in this city. Yes, historic shift. That's what is needed now. Historic shift in special education so that children with disabilities have a shot in their life. Historic shift in that students with disabilities can go to the same school as their peers. Historic students, that students like my son, who has very severe autism, can go to school locally. By the way, he can't. And not being rejected from all of the local schools. Historic shift that students like my son can learn functional communication and behavior strategies so that he could live in my own house with my own family. Currently, he can't. And these services are not present now in the district. So historic shift is needed. Well, in closing, I hope when City Council considers intervening with school board process, you hope you know that your actions can have a tremendous impact on people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Yiting Wang, and I represent myself. Athens City School District is currently in the process of master facility planning process because our buildings have reached to the end of their cycle. Several of our buildings have met the state's 2/3 rule, meaning that the maintenance cost of the building has exceeded the cost of building new ones. It means our students does not just deserve new facilities, but need them. Chairwoman Kinsley was at last month's school board meeting. I think she heard in firsthand about the condition, what kind of conditions our buildings are and what the need of our students are. As Athens City School will start deficit spending in 4 years, it is unlikely to replace all 4 elementary schools, and certain new configuration and school closing will be necessary. At this point, as the school district does not have a concrete plan yet, it is hard to assess the exact impact to the city. So it seems to me that we just witnessed how the taxpayers' money are wasted in the time spent on discussing and reading this resolution, when all the council's members say is that we need to wait for more details to come out. In terms of the content, the citizens do not need the city council's representation of our best interests in educational, economic, and social needs in participating in the decision-making process of our K-12 education. Concerned citizens can fully function to go to the school board meeting, write, talk, and communicate to the school board members and vote. In the meantime, according to school district's official, only around less than half of our students live within the city limits. The city council does not have right to hijack or insert itself into the ACSD planning process through the claim of representation. As for the line on the zoning, the language does not sound friendly or run the risk of forcing the school district out of the city to seek more hospital township. The city council would be going against the mayor's wish to keep the school in the city and against the city residents' interests by losing some revenue from school district employee income tax. I was surprised to hear the word inclusive being used as very unfriendly and not considering the effect on the decision of the school district. The idea of the neighborhood school seems transparent and wholesome, but it is only wholesome when we have equal neighborhoods, and that is not the reality of our school district. We have one school, the free students on free reduced lunch rate is 20%, and the other is over 50%. Also, our school district does not really operate on the neighborhood school model. East has open enrollment rate of 42%, and West is 51%. Councilman Butler, you need to know only half of the students in the West Elementary live in the attendance zone. The school in the city that serves most students is the Morrison Elementary, and most of the students go to the school on the bus. At a certain point, we really need to ask, are school really neighborhood schools? Judging from our current location, were they really designed and located as neighborhood schools? I feel there are a lot of things we need to, and a lot of concepts we need to think through. And I highly respect all the council persons here because I think you guys are smart and visionary city planners. And I would really love to see the city council seek win-win solutions with the city school. So our city will not only have good city schools, but also have a better city that increases the city residents' life quality and also brings city more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amber Duff. I'm speaking for myself this evening. I've struggled all the way through this process about what I believe about Athens, as well as Athens City Schools. Do I believe that anyone's at fault? Do I believe that Ms. Pappy did the wrong thing by bringing up the resolution? No, I don't. I believe she did what she did because she is in a position where the town itself is built on a system that's unequal, and she's simply representing the people that she needs to represent in her ward. Am I happy about it? No. Am I happy about it because nobody can see the system for itself? The reason why things happen the way they happen. We have some small towns in our area where manufacturing left, and we have a big center group of voters which vote as a single voting block because you simply can in your own interest. Is it wrong to vote in your own interest? Is it wrong to fight for it? No, it isn't. It's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. But you have to look at the larger system, that there is a group of people out here with desperate needs for this school district. At the last meeting, Noriko had a goose egg on her head from her son hitting her in the head. He didn't mean it, and you don't mean it. But this is what's happening, and we need to address it. There's a long history in our area of what happened with the city school districts. We all know that the last superintendent was voted out when the school system turned over because the people in the middle simply voted for what they wanted for themselves. Our superintendent is afraid of speaking up. Our school board is afraid of speaking up. People in the community are speaking up. And some of those reasons are they've got letters telling them not to. There was a letter that came to City Council tonight signed by, I don't know, I had at least 10 people sign it. I didn't hear it read. I'm not sure what happened to it. See, I don't think it's anyone's intention. But we have to look at the system that you're working in, not the system that you want. There are people on the outside, and they're telling you they have needs. It wasn't hard for me to find Michael Lyman, who is a small school supporter in Chansey doing things for children. I walked in his door and asked. It wasn't hard for me to find Michael at the high school, who was an upward bound student. I got on Facebook and looked for one. These things aren't hard. They aren't hard to hear your neighbors, even if they don't find you at pickup. You have to look at the system that we're working in and work with it. We are asking you to wait after the election so people aren't afraid to use their voices. That's all we're asking. I didn't ask Michael to change his views about small schools. I just want the system to work correctly.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good evening. My name is Meredith Price Mullins, and I am a resident of Athens. I would just like to thank the council tonight for discussing possible and ongoing changes with the Athens City School District and how those changes might affect the city and the taxpayers. I think the process should be transparent, and I appreciate your willingness to plan and to work to make sure the process is done thoroughly. And I would like to comment on a few of the public meeting with the steering committee. I know it was maybe publicized, but I wasn't aware of the meetings until the steering committee had already narrowed down their options. And then when I was aware, I did attend steering committee meetings. However, the public wasn't allowed to speak. So I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate you working with the city and the school district to come up with a viable solution. So thank you.
President Nisley,
Yes, Councilman Katsas.
I move to postpone Resolution 917 indefinitely.
So we have a motion.
I'd like to comment.
And second. We can open up for a discussion whether we have a motion and second.
I'll second.
Postponing.
I'll second.
Well, Councilmember Smedley seconded.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Okay. And yes, Councilmember Fall, you wanted to speak?
I think that people are misunderstanding part of the emphasis or the what City Council is trying to do. I think that people are frustrated because good planning means collaborating with a lot of different stakeholders. And many, many people have come forward to City Council and said that they're concerned. And being a planning nerd, we're going through our comprehensive plan, and I guess maybe the thing is that we are asking what I would like to see the school board to go on. This I have heard from many, many people that the steering committee wasn't like really inclusive, and that there are people outside of people who have school-age kids that are now concerned about this because they are feeling not included. And so I'd like to say many communities use city facility planning as part of their comprehensive plan, which we are doing right now. And I would just like to, this is just like saying to the school board, that there are a lot of people who are not feeling very included, and ultimately that may not be good for the outcome of the facility planning. Better outcomes means better planning goes into it, and then everybody, is included and happy. Well, happy is not a good word, but the satisfied, and that it's the best case for the schools and the community. So I don't think, we're not like saying, well, we don't want schools here, or we want this, or we want that. I guess maybe what this is saying, that a lot of people have been approaching the city council that says they're not feeling included in the planning process. Better planning always means better outcomes.
Okay, so right now we have a motion to postpone indefinitely. We have a second for that. And do we have any other comments?
Point of order. I'm confused. Does postpone mean table?
No, it is different. We can postpone indefinitely. So we could table a motion, we could postpone to a definite date, we could postpone indefinitely, we could amend.
Okay.
And so his motion right now is to postpone indefinitely.
Cleared that up.
Okay. So we have that motion and second right now. Any other comments or questions? If not,
I'm concerned with the indefinitely, so I guess we can vote, but
okay,
that would be my concern.
Okay.
So
yes, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. So in this table, the motion to postpone is indefinite. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Correct. And if I understand the procedure right, when somebody believes that somebody, the committee of the whole, or the person who designated the ordinance to begin with could come back and say they believe it's an appropriate time to bring it forward again, then they could do that. Sometimes we've laid something on the table, we've tabled something and we've said, but we're going to bring it back in 2 weeks. Right now, I think this is a more open-ended, realized, probably in recognition, I don't want to speak for Councilmember Katsas, but perhaps in recognition of the fact that the Athens City School Board is still in the midst of working through their planning process and their final recommendations, which might not come until next, I think April is their deadline, April 2018, if I understood from the last board meeting. Okay. All right, so we have the motion and second. And so I'd like to take a vote, and I'd like a show of hands for all those in favor of postponing indefinitely. We have 3 voting to postpone indefinitely. And so all those against postponing indefinitely. You have 3, so we're tied. Here we go. And so that means that I need to make a vote. And what I will say is that I understand that all parties concerned have been interested in collaborating and coordinating the process. I understand, and I do believe Councilmember Pappy intent behind this resolution is very sincere about the concerns for the school district. However, I do believe in the vested interest and responsibilities of the Athens City School Board for doing their planning process and to give them the time and the confidence that we have in their process and allow them that time until the April deadline. So I would vote in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely. Okay, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have a few more items of business, so if you'll stay patient with us, we'll work through those other motions and announcements. Are there any announcements that need to come up in light of next week's meetings, committee meetings? Do we have committees that need to meet?
Yeah, finance and personnel, as usual. We will have, we do need transportation, because we have an item that will come forward.
Okay.
Planning, I don't remember.
Okay. Okay. We do have a motion to remove an ordinance from the table, and this is Ordinance 10817. And this is an ordinance amending Athens City Code, Title 3, Administrative Provisions, Chapter 3.07, Administrative Departments, Boards, and Commissions, to add Section 3.07.76 to establish the Athens City Affordable Housing Commission. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We have worked on the different duties and commission members, and so I would ask that we remove it from the table, please.
Okay.
I motion.
So we have a motion and second for removing this ordinance from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay? Okay. The ordinance has been removed from the table.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we have a motion to approve the City of Athens, Ohio University December 1, 2016 Affordable Housing Recommendation Report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And this is a report that was the result of a task force which Councilmember Pappy and Vice President for Finance Steve Golding worked on for some months with a lot of volunteers, and so we thank them and commend them for all the work devoted to that. So we have the motion and second for approval of this affordable housing report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. The motion carries. We have a motion for appointment and reappointment to the Disabilities Commission. And I'll go ahead and speak to that. The mayor has requested to reappoint Rose Dykus for another 3-year term, which would expire on September 3rd, 2020. And also then to appoint Douglas Brooks, and we have received Mr. Brooks's resume. And he would be filling the unexpired term of Lori Kinney, whose term expires January 21st, 2018.
So moved.
Second. So we have a motion and second for these reappointment and a new appointment to the Disabilities Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Thank you very much for those people who have volunteered in the past and will be doing so in the future. And we have the Athens Municipal Arts Commission brochure that received some review at last week's committee meeting. And former council member Carol Patterson is here tonight. I think maybe you could give us just a brief report. I know we've received the final copy of this, correct?
Right. So I'm Carol Patterson, chair of the Arts Commission. We made several changes. We checked on the legality of the photo of the mural of the miners and added the bylines to the artwork on the brochure, which I thought was great, and just tweaked the language, mostly what we talked about last week, and took out the word fine and a few other places. I eliminated the language that made it seem like the Arts Commission wrote the essence of Athens, because we didn't. And I wanted it clear that that is a city document, but it did not come from us. But it certainly is a valuable tool for us. And the only word that I added, or Josh and I added, that was not discussed last week was the word local. And I was reading it over just before I sent it on. I thought, this doesn't say anywhere in the document that what we're really after is local artists being able to have their work in the places that are developed here. So I added that word. Other than that, there's nothing new that we had not discussed.
Okay. Thank you very much for all the work on that.
Yep.
So if we could have a motion in a second, perhaps? Okay.
Second.
In a second.
I want to say thank you, and I think adding local is great. That's what we are.
I hope this really does what we're hoping for and gets more developers on the team with us to promote local art throughout the city.
Okay. So thank you very much for these additions. So now we have the motion and second for approval of the the percent for art brochure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, sounds unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ready to go.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, we always have at the end of the council meetings an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that have not been on the agenda. So any other item that's not been covered tonight. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Okay. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're adjourned at 8:26 p.m. Thank you very much.